Hello and welcome to VENU Capital Conversations from VENU Holding Corporation, NYSE American, VENU. This video series was created to provide a consistent and accessible way to share company updates across VENU's portfolio. I'm your host, Chloe Paul Hamus. In today's episode, founder, chairman, and CEO JW Roth will cover recent developments across the business and respond directly to questions submitted to our inbox. Thank you for joining this edition of VENU Capital Conversations. Let's get started. Thanks for being here, JW.
It's great to be here. It's been a big week.
Yes, it's been a very big week. Are you ready to kick this off? We've got a whole bunch of questions, should we say?
I can imagine. Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So the first question to dig into is that VENU, of course, as you know, has a very unique model. And this includes public-private partnerships, fractional ownerships, and of course, the final stage of sale-leasebacks. This week, you hit one of those milestones. Congratulations. With the recent close of a more than $49 million sale-leaseback here in Colorado Springs. Can you talk a little bit more about that and what that means for the greater picture as we roll that out?
Yeah. So as you look at our financing strategy, right? It's sort of three pieces of financing that have to come into place on all of these. And remember, we're a young company. We're sort of pre-revenue. So we're in the process of building these assets. And that is capital heavy. It's not capital light. Mm-hmm. And so we are in the process of sort of launching all three of those pieces. So 3 years ago, we started by launching the first piece, which is public-private partnerships, right? Sit down with the city of Broken Arrow and McKinney, Texas, and El Paso, Texas, and Webster, Texas, and just announced Chattanooga. All of those are public-private partnerships. Those public-private partnerships represent about 40% of the total capital value of these projects. The second piece, fractional ownership. Fractional ownership comes from the idea, think of a Ritz-Carlton or a Four Seasons developer that goes in and takes an entity, sets it on a ground lease, and then goes in and pre-sells condominiums up at the top of that entity to help offset the cost of the infrastructure of the hotel, right? We did the same thing here. Our amphitheaters or our venues are structured on the same financial structure where we go in and pre-sell fractional ownership. In our case, our condominiums are fire pit suites. Mm-hmm. That represents about 40 or 45% of the total completed value, but it represents about 80% of the construction cost of financing these, right? Mm-hmm. So when people look at our balance sheet, they have to realize that the capital that is on our balance sheet, let's call it $400 million, those are GAAP accounted for assets. Over and above that, there's the mark-to-market value of all of the real estate. And we are proving that as we enter into the third piece, which is the sale-leasebacks. So we take a piece of property that was either contributed by a municipality or contributed by a developer, which is the case in Colorado Springs, or whatever. Once the project is either close to being completed or completed, we then take that contributed piece of property and we monetize it by selling it for about 20% or so of the value of the overall project. Mm-hmm. So you get a lot of times, you get these armchair analysts, right, that are just always talking about, how much they know. And what they do is they just miss the real business model here. The real business model is monetizing ultimately these assets pre-revenue, right? So what we did earlier this week in selling the land underneath the Ford was to complete a piece of financing that we then pay forward. So that capital will get now paid for into Broken Arrow. But what it really does is it now sets up the rest of these sales. So we have about $250 million in land that will now start coming up for sale in sale-leasebacks. We will then recirculate that $250 million and put it right back into capitalizing and funding the projects as we go forward. So it's a super important piece. So now we've done all three, right? Public-private partnerships, we did it. Fractional ownerships. We sell millions and millions of dollars every month in fractional ownership. And now the third piece, which is super important that we prove that model, and that's the sale-leaseback of this piece right here. And we're fielding term sheets almost daily for the balance of the real estate over the course of the next several quarters. So it's a big opportunity for us to sort of showcase what we do.
And can you talk about why now? Like, how did it happen now, and why couldn't it have happened earlier?
It could have. We chose now. Choose it as you need the capital, right? So, because when you do this, it also creates an occupancy expense, right? You have to start paying that lease, and so you want to do it when you need the capital. So as you start to burn capital off your balance sheet, cash, and you get to the point where we need capital to continue construction, add 50 million. So that's when you make the decision to do that. For example, the next 250 million that come, we're going to strategically do that and make those sales as we need the capital. A lot of times, again, it's these armchair analysts that'll look at it and go, well, they're going to run out of capital on Tuesday. Well, I'm being a little bit tongue-in-cheek there. But at the end of the day, that's true. And when you see that happening, you sort of know there's a sale-leaseback coming.
So you talked about the 200 million possibly or coming up on the
horizon.
On the horizon. You're right. Who are the buyers in that? What does that look like?
So there's a lot of different buyers. Think of institutional buyers that do sale-leasebacks. You have the Store Capitals of the world, the Vincis of the world, big family offices. This one that we just did was a combination of family offices, 2 family offices, including mine, that participated in that purchase. But those are the kinds of buyers that are out there. Mostly institutional income acquirers.
Awesome. You also mentioned just a minute ago that you announced Chattanooga. Congratulations. Since we last spoke, you made a couple different major expansion announcements. Can you talk a little bit more about those because those are really, really fun as VENU continues its expansion.
Can you imagine Chattanooga? I mean, I think about this all the time. I stood there with Bob Mudd, and you're looking over the Tennessee River, right? It's one of the most beautiful places in the world, and the entertainment district down there is unbelievable. And there's slips, one right after another, hundreds of them, where people will pull their boats up and walk into our venue. You know, we're working very diligently. I keep calling them amphitheaters, but it drives me crazy because they're not amphitheaters. What we build are multi-seasonal, multi-configurational, omni-content. They're next-gen venues. So when I say the Chattanooga Amphitheater, I really mean the Chattanooga next-gen venue. But it's unbelievable. People will access that venue in ways that are beyond cool.
I'll just say in Northern Colorado, right?
Northern Colorado's coming. You know, it's something that's been on our drawing board for a long time. You know, it's a process that you go through with municipalities. As municipalities put their hat in the ring, and then we kind of go through site criteria and determining sites, determining what that partnership is going to look like. So right now we have 3 municipalities with their hats in the ring. We'll be making those decisions here over the course of the next several months. But again, you know, this is home for me. I'm a 5th generation Coloradoan, and I can't tell you how pumped I am to be talking about building up north. My brother graduated veterinary school at CSU, coming from an agricultural family and a family where my first meatpacking plant was in Greeley, just outside of Greeley. You know, it's a special place for us. It's culturally rich in that area of Colorado, whether you're talking about UNC at Greeley or you're talking about CSU at Fort Collins or whatever. It's super cool. But it also reaches into sort of the southern Wyoming, right? Cheyenne will embrace what we're going to build in Northern Colorado. So anyway, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but we're pumped about Northern Colorado.
I was going to say that one of the most common questions we get into our inbox is, where is it going to go?
I know.
But it sounds
it's going to go to one of 3 places. I just can't tell you which.
And I think it has almost 1 million people. It's just maybe over just 1 million people in that
the entire MSA.
That MSA. Yeah. So it was quite an exciting area.
Yeah,
so
super cool.
Definitely. But okay, next question. VENU was landed on the Russell 3000 index. Congratulations. That was announced as of, I think it was like 48 hours ago, but it did land a couple, like last week.
Yeah.
So tell us what this means for the overall VENU trajectory.
Yeah, it's interesting. So behind the scenes, there are just a lot of folks watching how we're building this, right? And they're getting their arms around that. Really, this is a balance sheet play right this second. That very, very, very shortly, starting with Broken Arrow, coming here in about 150 days or so, followed by McKinney, followed by El Paso, followed by, Webster and Houston, becomes a P&L play and becomes an earnings play, right? But right now, behind the scenes, folks are watching that, trying to get their arms around that. When you get sort of the validation of the Russell adding you to index, it's an exciting time, right? We're also, as we build out our partnerships and you start to have partners come on, capital partners that now are appreciating what you built, it's an exciting time. So listen, we've got an incredible team here. We have incredible partnerships, whether it's at Live Nation or AEG or Aramarkers, all of the folks that play such a role in what we do, to our capital partners, right? What the O'Neill family did in stepping up with our family to do what we did earlier this week, to fielding these offers for our other properties. I mean, these are folks that have, really gotten under the hood and have understood what we're building. So this will be an interesting next 3 or 4 quarters, because think about this. Over the next 4 quarters, we're going to open millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of assets that will create tens of millions of dollars in annual EBITDA. So this is an exciting time to be at VENU. You could get a little seasick, right, with a lot of the things that we have going on. But it's typical for a company that's our age, that's sort of in our position. We're not fully baked by a long shot. And so, you're going to watch how we grow, and there's flexibility that we need to have in almost every area of our corporate life. But this will be a very interesting next 4 quarters.
I certainly think so as well. Knowing some things are on the horizon, it's an exciting time. Yeah. You talked about, what we're building here, and what we're building here is truly iconic. It's truly legendary. And, since I've been here, and has been just legendary. I can't even find a better word for it. So let's go into that.
From the days you were booking shows at Boot Barn Hall.
Never have I ever thought I was going to be booking shows, but the evolution of that has been truly wonderful. And going into booking shows, let's talk about that. So content is truly the name of this game. Yep. One of the bigger questions that we get into our inbox is, look, the big dogs have been around for years. The Live Nations, AEGs of the world have been in this for many years, and those are our partners, right? But our content model is truly unique at VENU. So can you talk about what really differentiates us from the rest of the industry? Yeah.
So, when we started, the idea was to build the Ford, right? The Ford Amphitheater. And the Ford Amphitheater was a concept that we wanted to sort of get our arms around 2 things. One, how do you sell premium? That's number 1. And number 2, how do you sell fractional ownership, right? How does that work? And then the next evolution was from Ford is to let's build multi-seasonal. Let's build multi-configuration, right? So that you can have arena shows, you can have bigger shows, you can have hall shows, amp shows, all of those things. But the most important piece of the next generation that you're going to see come out here in the next 4 or 5 months when Broken Arrow is finished, and then McKinney, is omni-content. The Live Nations and the AEGs are super partners. They're music sort of centric, right? Yep. They do other things, but music centric. What we wanted to do here is, in building a new generation of VENU, is to take the new gen amphitheater, right, music centric, and marry it with sort of the omni content of what you think of when you think of the Sphere, right? You think of theater, you think of movies, you think of what I believe will become AI-generated content that none of us have ever seen before. But you have to have a venue that will be embracing of that, right? And so we have hired the best in class in the world in and through BCA to create what will be truly the next generation of omni content, which you will see come to light in Broken Arrow, in which now 50% of what you see is awesome artists stepping out onto the stage. And 50% of what you will see is a black stage with everything around you happening, including movies, including theater, including AI-generated content that I'm watching be developed. And what we're trying to do with our partners is create an environment that will be immersive, right? And that's everything that we're doing. We sell tickets, right? But that's really not what we sell. We sell memories, and we sell ambiance, and we sell experiences. And that's the next generation venue. And we're excited to debut it.
Yeah. I think, listening to you explain that in the emotion that you radiate with that, it's hard to, you feel that emotion, but it's hard to explain that emotion when you even just try to explain it in a building, right? So, but
when something happens in your head,
Yeah.
right? And you try to take what's in your head and put it on paper, and then you have to take what's on paper and show an architect, and then you got to show that guy, blah, blah, blah. So that over the course of 3 years, hopefully, what happens when they flip the power on is what was in your head, right? Well, here, we have a ginormous team, and everybody's heads are sort of feeding in to what you're going to see. Here's the other crazy part. We used to sit around 3 years ago and say, okay, close your eyes and imagine this. This is what's going to happen. Not anymore. We're sitting around now with our eyes wide open, watching it as it's come out of the ground. And now we're saying in a handful of weeks.
That's right.
In a handful of weeks, in 16 to 20 weeks, this thing opens. And right after that, 16 to 20 weeks later, the biggest one ever built in history opens at 121 and 75 in Dallas-Fort Worth. It's the craziest time to be at VENU.
So much so, you're trying to completely rename the venue. That's all I'm saying.
We are. We talk about this all the time. It's the craziest thing ever. We call these things amphitheaters.
That's right.
It's wrong.
Yeah.
It's like a sin, right? You can't call this an amphitheater. Anyway, we digress. We digress for a different day.
Thanks again, JW, for your time. It's been such a blast hanging out with you. We really appreciate it. And thank you guys so much for joining us for another episode of VENU Capital Conversations. And a special thank you again for JW for his time and for sharing these updates. If you'd like to submit a question for consideration or to engage with our team directly, please email us at investors@venu.live. Until next time, and we'll see you again soon.